Okay, this is a LARP video. It's kind of a little bit of a rant as well. Something that I've come to find is that much like they break down the generations here in America, they talk about the baby boomers, Generation X, Generation Next, it's, the Millennium babies, and so on. You kind of got the same thing when it comes to LARP. And I'm talking specifically about White Wolf and World of Darkness LARPing. You got to go way back, and you get to what I call the inaugural generation. This is the group that either started playing Vampire the Masquerade when it was tabletop, and moved into the infamous box set. I was one of those, and we brought several people in. The box set was, well, if you look back, it was kind of crap. I mean, they had so many problems with it, it wasn't even funny. However, it did break us into the LARPing scene, and it had its advantages. I mean, it was straight Vampire, but at least from our standpoint here in Florida, we worked with what we had. And we were starting to lay the groundwork and the pavement for what was to come after here. Next, we got to what can only be referred to here as the Golden Era generation. At this point, the old gray books came out for Vampire. The first generation rules, or second generation, however you want to look at it. Well, they were obviously flawed, but we made do. And we were running large games. I mean, we had at one point 300 people that we were running. It was interesting. I spent some time up in Chicago, and I got to see the advent of OWN. We were here. We were in the Camarilla fan club. They were in their infancy. They had issues, but in the end, the games were fun. Everybody was figuring out the rules. There was lots of really good role playing. The politics and the dynamics were awesome, and the drama was there, but it was minimal. Then you move into what I'm calling the split generation. This is where White Wolf started coming out with their other systems. Werewolf, Mage, Oblivion, Changeling. And people started to either pick their favorite games, or what I've seen too many people do is they started trying to play every game, or they started trying to bring the other systems into the current system. Every time that we brought another system into Vampire as more than just a storyline or a peripheral purpose, it was damaging to the overall effect of the game. Standalone, though, they all worked fairly well. It just started to divide the gaming community to a smaller degree. Then we have what I call the D generation. And yes, it's a play on words to generation. This is when it was starting to be allowed to play the antagonists. They came out with the comprehensive rules for the Sabbat. They came out with comprehensive rules for Black Spiral Dancers and Fomori, and various other enemies for the various games. I think this was a bad move. Now, I know it's always a case of if you create it, they will play it, but it created a lot of tension, it created a lot of drama, it created a lot of hatred amongst gamers. People played Sabbat and people played Camarilla and just didn't get along anymore. Everybody thought there was something cheesy going on. There was, it became a game where it wasn't about writing the overall story, it was about who was going to win, who was going to have the upper hand and be able to keep it. I think that's the point where it started to lose some of its flavor. And as such, now there were some gamers at this point, because this actually spanned a good 10 years, maybe a little less, but some people started to move out of gaming. Either they, I don't know, matured past it. There were some who moved back to tabletop because they liked it better. There were a lot of people that left gaming because they didn't like the drama that was starting to be created, especially with the Generation group. They didn't like the arguments. They didn't like the fact that they felt like they were going to come to game and they weren't going to get anything done because they were going to be avoiding getting killed all night because there were going to be hunting packs of Sabbat out there, or Black Spiral Dancers that would just kill you at the drop of a hat. So it started becoming less of a role-playing game and more of a power game. That moved us into the meta generation. At this point, a lot of the role players had left. A lot of the other role players had kind of become introverted, or they started forming smaller groups that were elitist. I was guilty of that. What this left was the power gamers, the meta gamers. And a lot of the games became drama fests. This extended to the organizations as well. I mean, there's a lot of problems out there with the organizations, and we've seen it over the years. Of course, my history with organizations isn't that great, but most of that comes down to a few bad apples. My falling out with OWN had to do with one piece of crap that got caught cheating, and I called him out on it, and he proceeded to ruin my reputation with him. So I'm now banned for life from OWN. I'm quite proud of that, because the fact that I'm banned for life, and why I'm banned for life, it strikes me as ironically amusing, because it makes pretty much everybody who was involved in it, who still is, kind of self-proclaimed idiots, because they let themselves be hoodwinked by pretty much one asinine individual and his coterie of greebles. So that amuses me. But every organization out there's had issues. Some have gotten worse, some have gotten better. Camarilla Fan Club has now become the Mind's Eye Society. If you go back to the 90s when we were part of the Camarilla Fan Club, they had problems. Mind's Eye Society may have issues now, but I'll tell you this much, they have progressed, they have gotten better. They are in a lot better situation, they are a lot more professional than they ever were before. See, then it leads to this generation. I call this the broken generation. The problem is, there are too many games out there now have been led by those meta gamers and those power gamers that were the carryover from the earlier generations. The ones that they were still there because they chased off all of the, the solid role players, the creative minds, the adapters, the thinkers, the ones who made it fun for everybody. The problem is we got all this new blood that has come in, but who have they had to teach them? The metagamers. And this is creating what I call the broken generation. A bunch of people that don't know any better. When they see actual solid good role-playing, they don't recognize it as such. They're looking for the catch. They're looking for where the cheese factor is, what mechanics are being used. They just don't get that there is role-playing. Some of the best scenes in the world are the ones where there's not a single challenge thrown. You got good role players when the storyteller will basically say, leave me alone for a minute, I want to watch this scene, because the role playing is that good. And I used to do that all the time. Part of the reason I don't run Vampire anymore is because the players made it not fun for me. Most of those players are in the games that are out there that I frankly don't consider fun. They have their own fun, so they're legitimate in their own right. Of course, they've still got that metagaming core, so they never accept that, and they create friction. Like when they start saying that they're the only existing LARPs in town, and try throwing it at people. Whatever, guys. This broken generation, it worries me. It's not producing great players. It's not producing great storytellers. What is the next generation that we're going to see? Is it going to be like it should be, where it's a cycle? Is this going to be like, a startup? Is the broken generation the new inaugural generation? Are we going to see a new golden era come out of it? I mean, that's counting on like the new set of rules that came out. Will they do it? I don't know. Or the new organization that's popped up. Will that be what actually refreshes and brings it back to life? I don't know. But the next generation is either going to be the resurgent generation, or it's going to be the death knell generation. Because in the end, either White Wolf LARPing is going to go by the wayside, and the true role players out there and the up and coming role players are going to find something new, something better, something that is fresh and resurgent with ideas, and it's free of the metagaming aspects that are so rife in especially vampire games. Vampire games in particular, to a lesser extent the other White Wolf oriented World of Darkness games. Or is this it? I mean, is it just going to be a case of people die, people walk away, find other things to do? Or is somebody going to come out of the woodwork, and are they going to start finding these new ways of doing things, and are they going to, make it resurgent? I don't know. I feel like over the years, I've left a mark on gaming in Jacksonville. A good mark for many, not so good mark for others. The ones who have the not so good mark, I always wanted to say, do a little introspection, because you might find that the reason it's not so good is because you don't like looking at yourself. I have very little tolerance for idiocy and bad players, which are usually the ones that have the bad marks. When I say bad players, I'm not talking about people who don't know what they're doing or are trying to learn. I'm talking about the ones that are too stupid and too ignorant and too stubborn to ever want to learn. They think that they know best in their little metagaming styles, and they try to stick to them. And they know who they are. They won't want to admit it, but they know who they are. And they tend to cluster. Their games tend to be like a pile of shit. I hate to say it. And they're like the flies that are drawn to it. They come near real gamers, what do? We swat away the flies. Because they're pests, they're gnats, they're buzzing in our ears. So, I'm really hoping that there's going to be a new generation that's going to be resurgent. When it comes to certain things, I don't think I'm ever going to go back to Vampire. I think I'm over it. I think it's been overplayed. I think Hollywood's overplayed the vampire mode. I don't think it's ever going to be free of the big time metagamers and the asininity that's out there. But Vampire's always been the core. For the other succeed, Vampire's going to have to succeed as well, first. Werewolf, I hope it succeeds. I love the game. Changeling, Mage, Oblivion, Hunters, they're all decent, and I hope that they do succeed in their own right. But I think it all comes down to Vampire. And if none of those do work, then the question is going to be, what's going to be the next system? What's going to be the next genre that's going to hit? I mean, everybody's talking about zombie apocalypse, and there's dystopia rising out there, but it's Boffer LARP. Boffer LARPs are more about physicality than intellectual nature. For some of us, we need the intellectual game before the physical game. And that's what I'm waiting to see what's coming next. Because if White Wolf doesn't adapt, it's going to shrivel on the vine, and guess what? We need something to take its place. Nature pours a vacuum, and it's about time that something new came in. It's the way of things. It's evolution. So that's my little rant. It was an epiphany about the different generations. There's a lot of things going on that annoy me, and at this point, I've started to come to the conclusion that White Wolf's going to be in an adapt or die mentality, or they have to be for the next couple of years. Otherwise, something's going to come along that's going to be better, newer. You know, everybody loves a shiny new toy, and it's going to start hitting them in the jugular, and eventually something is going to supplant them. So that's it. I'm going to wrap this one up. It's kind of a long one, so, and well, I have been remiss and I haven't done a video in about a week, so it makes sense. Okay, guys, take it easy. Peace.